Welcome, listener. I'm glad you're here. Take a seat next to the fire.
Welcome to Obscura, where we shine a light on the dark.
The Gap National Park is located at Watson's Bay in the upmarket eastern suburbs of Sydney, Australia. Amongst dense rainforest foliage and Norfolk pine trees, the path winds along the Ocean Lookout, which boasts spectacular views from the exposed coastline that drops off sharply to the Tasman Sea, which meets the Pacific Ocean. Every year, on December 26th, crowds of spectators flock to this prime vantage point to witness a field of yachting competitors sailing past as the flotilla makes its way down the east coast of Australia. In the famous and grueling Sydney to Hobart yacht race, the waters off the Gap can be treacherous and unforgiving. Along the sandstone cliff edge, the jagged rock face has a steep drop to the flat wave-cut ledge and rocks below, which are lashed by rough swells of the ocean. On winter evenings, you feel the brunt of the cold blowing up from the south, and the ocean is obscured by darkness. The only sounds are the rushing and blustering winds and the surf crashing on the rocks, 85 meters below. For all its beauty and stunning views to the horizon, the Gap has a darker and more melancholy side, dating back to the 1860s. Floral tributes can regularly be found at the spot, having been placed in somber commemoration by family and friends, in memory of those who have taken their lives on the edge of the coast, or those who have slipped and died accidentally. On the winter evening of August 5th, 2013, Teresa Marsden was worried. Her eldest daughter, 20-year-old Renae, had earlier gone out for dinner with her colleagues in the eastern suburbs, but hadn't returned home. Teresa and Renae were as close as any mother and daughter could be, and both cherished their close bond. Renae told Teresa everything about her life, and was always in contact given she still lived at home, so her tardiness after the work function was odd. Renae loved socializing and hanging out with her friends and cousins. It wasn't into late-night partying, especially not on a weekend. Earlier that afternoon, Renae had arrived home from work early. She was upset and had been crying. Around the same time, Teresa had received a text message from Renae's boyfriend, Brayden, curtly telling Teresa that Renae was threatening to kill herself. Brayden was in jail, serving a sentence for manslaughter, but he and Renae had constantly been in contact via text message for around 18 months. Their relationship had been tumultuous at times, but Renae was deeply in love with Brayden and was looking forward to his release later that year so they could plan their future together. Understandably, concerned Teresa asked Renae if Brayden's message meant there was anything to worry about. Was it true that Renae was really considering suicide? Renae insisted she would never take her own life, telling Teresa, "You don't have to worry about him anymore. I finally found out what he is all about." Teresa asked what Renae meant, to which Renae replied, "Don't worry, Mom. It's all over." As far as Teresa understood it, it sounded like the relationship had ended. She of course hated seeing her daughter so bitterly disappointed, especially after all the effort she put into the long-distance relationship. But Teresa wasn't entirely unhappy about the news. From time to time, she'd had concerns about the way Brayden often spoke to Renae, which upset her. But Teresa thought she still had time to convince her daughter that it was best that she end the relationship and instead focus on dating someone in the outside world. Renae reassured her mother everything was all right and drove away from the family's home in a red Mazda 2. At 5:49 p.m., she sent a text message to Teresa saying she loved her and that she was her best friend. Teresa wasn't initially overly concerned about the message, especially considering their frank and heartfelt discussion earlier that afternoon about the end of Renae's relationship with Brayden. Because Teresa was so close with her daughter, she felt it was a message more recognizing the unconditional love and support Renae felt as a result of their conversation. After receiving the message, Teresa tried calling Renae, but there was no answer. That same evening, with no sign of Renae, Teresa showed the message to a friend, who urged Teresa to contact the police. The fact that Renae hadn't been in contact since she sent the message and hadn't returned home weren't encouraging signs. Teresa and her husband, Mark, just wanted to know their daughter was okay. Little did the Marsden family know, that night was the beginning of their search for answers. But what happened to Renae? Part 1. An Old Soul. Renae was born on October 15, 1992, in the southwest Sydney suburb of Fairfield, to Teresa and her husband, Jamie. The marriage ended while Renae was still a baby, but when she was around 4 years old, her mother, Teresa, met Mark Marsden. Mark was the only father Renae knew, and whose close bond was reflected in Renae's later decision to legally adopt his surname. In around 1997, Teresa and Renae moved in with Mark, the couple marrying in 2000. They went on to have 3 children and settled in the Hills District, on the outskirts of northwest Sydney. Even though there was an age difference of 9 years with her brother and 13 years with her youngest sister, Renae adored her half-siblings. She had close and loving relationship with her many friends and family, including her cousins Michael, Stephanie, and Alana, whom she spent every weekend with at their grandmother's house, where they'd all have their regular spaghetti and meatball dinner. Renae's love for her younger sister was strong, and she delighted in mucking around with the younger girl in the family backyard on her push bike. As a youngster, Renae was spirited and outgoing. These qualities stayed with her as she grew, along with her kindness and thoughtfulness. Renae was a conscientious student who did well at school and developed a maturity beyond her years, which made her stand out amongst those her own age. Renae's mother, Teresa, told Obscura, Renae had a gift. She could relate to anyone. She was also a real joker. Her smile and laugh could light up a room. She trusted everybody. She didn't see bad in anybody. If you needed help, she'd be the first one there. Life was sunny for Renae, who started high school at Mount St. Benedict College, private Catholic girls' school, in Pennant Hills in 2005. Renae continued to perform well academically, but that would all change 2 years later, when Renae started 9th grade. Part 2. Bad Influence. In 2007, 14-year-old Renae met and became friendly with a fellow Mount St. Benedict student, 14-year-old Camilla Ziden. Camilla lived with her parents and 2 siblings not far from Renae. During primary school, before she met Renae, Camilla was said to have bullied and threatened other students at her school. By the time Renae and Camilla became friends several years later, Renae had been in a relationship with a boy for most of the year. As Camilla and Renae's friendship grew closer, and they spent more time together, Camilla made it clear she didn't approve of Renae's boyfriend, and the couple soon broke up. At one stage early in the friendship, Renae developed a crush on Camilla's brother. This never went anywhere though, as Camilla wanted to spend all her time with Renae to the exclusion of others. As the year progressed, Camilla and Renae started skipping school together and smoking cigarettes. Renae got herself a part-time job at a hair salon working Thursday evenings and Saturdays. But much to her family's dismay, Renae's usually good grades slipped as she stopped performing well in class. There was also a marked shift in the way Renae now interacted with others. Gone was the bubbly, driven, and forthright teen who always did her best in everything. In her place was a reserved, withdrawn wallflower who had seemed to lose her usual motivation. Renae eventually confided in her cousin Stephanie that Camilla often pushed and punched her, which resulted in bruises. Stephanie was alarmed and advised Renae to end the friendship, but for some reason, Renae continued to hang out with Camilla. Renae didn't tell her family about the physical abuse, but Teresa noticed that Camilla's family seemed to indulge her. She was strong-willed, manipulative, seemed to get whatever she wanted, whenever she wanted it, and had little to no disciplinary boundaries. It seemed that no one could control her. The extent of Camilla's problematic behavior soon became known to Renae's parents. Renae told Teresa that Camilla pinned her up against the bathroom wall at school and behaved in a sexually aggressive manner. Teresa and Mark approached the school to see what they could do to address Camilla's inappropriate behavior towards their daughter. It was the first of several meetings the Marstens would have with the school. Concerned about the influence Camilla was having on Renae, Camilla's physical abuse of Renae continued into 2008, but as far as the Marsdens were aware, Camilla wasn't really on the scene. In mid-2008, Renae confided in her cousin Stephanie that Camilla had attempted to kiss her on several occasions. Sometimes this was accompanied by physical violence, followed by contrition and manipulative sexual advances. Renae swore Stephanie to secrecy about Camilla's behavior, but Stephanie was by now so concerned for Renae's safety that she disclosed the details of Camilla's behavior to Teresa. Disturbed by the revelation, Teresa confronted Renae about the nature of the friendship, who confirmed that it was abusive and that she was afraid of Camilla. Teresa's concerns only deepened when she found letters from Camilla to Renae. The Sydney Morning Herald reported that emails sent from Camilla to Renae during 10th grade said, "I swear, babe, anyone who ever takes you away from me is going to be sorry. I'll be a kung fu panda and smash them. I swear to God, kid, you're going nowhere. Do you understand? You kill me, I will be your ghost. You hate me, I'll still love you. Run away, chase you, you hide. I will hunt you down. You got no way to escape, baby, because only I'm in love with you, and only I'll own you. I don't think you have any way out of this love story, gorgeous. But baby, you need to know I'm too in love with you and too obsessed with you and crazy about you, baby. It's forever." In another email, Camilla declared, "I love you so much. Baby, you can get phone sex with me every night, and then I will give you sex in bed, okay?" Renae's parents had no knowledge of the content of Camilla's email communications, but it was clear that her intentions were more than platonic. While Camilla was having romantic feelings for Renae wasn't problematic in itself, in the context of her pattern aggressive behavior, it was a huge red flag for Teresa and Mark. Renae's poor academic performance and change in demeanor now made sense. Camilla's influence was not a healthy one. Teresa and Mark had further meetings with the school and Camilla's parents to address their concerns and end the friendship between the girls. Teresa even told Renae she'd stop paying her mobile phone bill, so Renae couldn't call or send text messages to Camilla. Camilla wasn't concerned. She gave Renae another mobile phone so the girls can continue to be in contact, unbeknownst to Teresa. Eventually, other students started targeting Camilla over their suspicion that she and Renae were in a romantic relationship. When some students prank called Camilla to tease her about it, her response was to fire off an angry email venting to Renae. Camilla vowed to seek revenge on her tormentors, saying, "I'm going to kill them both. I'll snap their necks out of place. No one will ever say shit about me and my babies." As far as Teresa knew, Renae hardly seemed to mention Camilla at all anymore. But as the end of the school year loomed, Renae was adamant she wanted to leave school and get a job. She didn't offer much of an explanation to Teresa, who knew that deep down, Renae didn't have dreams of pursuing a high-powered career. Renae was family-oriented, and her dream had long been to one day get married and raise children of her own. Renae was emphatic, telling Teresa, "Don't waste your money anymore, Mom. I hate school. I want out." 2009 was Renae's fresh start. The 16-year-old started a hairdressing apprenticeship at a college in the northern suburbs of Sydney and continued working part-time at the hair salon in conjunction with her studies. Renae's attempt to break away from the friendship with Camilla appeared to have been successful, and she focused on her apprenticeship. Between attending classes for most of the week and working evenings and Saturdays, Renae had time for precious little else, but she loved being busy. It wasn't long before a client of Renae's named Angus caught Renae's eye, and the feeling was mutual. The pair started dating, with Angus drawn to Renae's natural optimism. He later described Renae as someone who always looked on the bright side of life, with a glass-half-full approach. Angus himself was attractive and received a lot of female attention, but only had eyes for Renae. So devoted were the young couple, they wrote up a contract detailing their joint plans for the future when the time was right. By this time, Renae wasn't hearing from Camilla as much, but Renae was busy anyway. Between studying and working 6 days a week, and spending time with Angus and her family, Renae's dance card was full, and she was happy. But halfway through the year, Camilla left school and joined Renae's hairdressing course. Camilla not only attended the same college, she also got an apprenticeship, not far from where Renae was working. This didn't bode well. Renae's worst fears were confirmed when one day, Camilla chased her down the hall at college and maliciously pulled her hair. Again, a frightened Renae confided in her cousin, Stephanie, about what was happening, realizing that she needed to take more drastic action. She was too scared to report Camilla's harassment to the police, so decided on a different course of action. Renae arranged for her and Teresa to meet up with Camilla and her mother at a local cafe. Renae hoped that the presence of Camilla's mother would help her daughter accept Renae's boundaries. Feeling buoyed by Teresa's support, Renae bravely broke the difficult news to Camilla that she felt it was best their friendship didn't continue. As expected, Camilla didn't take it well. Teresa told Obscura that Camilla's mother tried to placate her daughter by saying, "Camilla, you need to accept that Renae doesn't want to be friends with you anymore." Camilla's response was to tell her mother to, quote, "Shut the fuck up," and indignant Camilla wouldn't take no for an answer. She started arguing with Renae. The situation was escalating. As Camilla became more enraged, Renae felt so uncomfortable, she felt it best to leave before there was any more of a scene. Teresa gave Renae the keys to the car and instructed her to go there and wait. But a furious Camilla followed Renae as she left, grabbing her friend's arm and repeatedly pleading, "You don't mean it." Teresa couldn't believe what she was seeing. Camilla wouldn't let Renae go, and Teresa had to physically intervene to pull Camilla off of her daughter, whom she escorted to the car. Camilla gave chase, pushing herself in between the car door in an attempt to get at a terrified Renae. Again, a shocked Teresa found herself fighting Camilla off in order to leave safely. The ordeal made it clear to Teresa that Camilla's feelings about the friendship and her inability to accept and respect Renae's wishes were nothing short of obsessive. Following the public confrontation, things quieted down with Camilla. Hopefully, she was moving on with her life and making new friends. By April 2010, 17-year-old Renae was working more hours at the hair salon in conjunction with finishing her hairdressing qualification. Her relationship with Angus continued to blossom, but things had once again become tense and unpredictable with Camilla, who had recommenced contact with Renae. Camilla made snide comments to Renae about Angus' striking good looks, referring to him as a Ken doll. She also began following Renae on the train to work, called and text messaged her constantly, made unannounced visits to both the Marsden home and Renae's workplace. Renae confided in her mother that she noticed that Camilla now seemed to coincidentally run into her in public places. Teresa witnessed this for herself one day when she saw Camilla approach Renae at Castle Hill Library. Teresa heard Camilla threaten Renae, "As long as you refuse to answer my phone calls, I will continue to follow you." One day, Angus became troubled when he noticed bruises on Renae's arms. She confided in him that she didn't want to finish her hairdressing apprenticeship because she was scared of attending college with Camilla. Renae went on to tell a concerned Angus that in one incident, Camilla had pinned her down by the hands inside her car and locked the doors. Renae had a history of scoliosis, which made being on her feet all day as a hairdresser extremely uncomfortable and contributed to back pain. But in the end, she felt so intimidated by Camilla and suffocated by her obsessiveness that she dropped out of her hairdressing course in October 2010 and went to work as a receptionist at her parents' business. Camilla continued to be in contact with Renae into 2011, and around April, Camilla told Renae she started dating a guy named Brayden. This was exciting news. Renae was still enjoying her relationship with Angus, but genuinely happy that Camilla had also met someone she seemed to be head over heels about. Renae was thrilled her friend had found someone special, but she was also relieved Camilla's social circle was widening and that she was spending time with someone else. Camilla gushed to Renae about Brayden's wealthy family, who were said to be prominent civil construction developers. As a result, Brayden had a privileged upbringing. After graduating from the exclusive King's School in Parramatta in Sydney's West some years previously, he now played a key role in project management and construction on high-rise projects. But despite her new love interest, Camilla still wasn't happy about the status of her friendship with Renae. Over a 6-week period from late August onwards, Camilla sent Facebook messages to Renae, complaining about the amount of time that Renae was spending with Angus. Camilla sulked that she felt, quote, second best in comparison to Angus, telling Renae she felt like something on the side. The Sydney Morning Herald reported that on September 4, 2011, Camilla called Renae 54 times, but didn't pick up. The next day, Renae texted Camilla about her harassment saying, "That's fucked. I'm sorry, but that's possessive. If you can't see that, there is something terribly wrong with you." Camilla replied, "We fight every day. We argue. I told you I love you." Renae responded, "There's only so much of your arguing and possessiveness I can take. I love you and always will." Later that same month, Camilla decided it was time to issue an ultimatum. She wanted Renae to choose between her best friend or her boyfriend. Renae told Camilla that just because she was in a relationship didn't mean they couldn't spend time together, but she made it clear that she couldn't make Camilla her number one priority all the time. Not long after this, Renae started receiving text messages forwarded from Camilla that had apparently been sent by a friend of Angus. The messages from the friend stated that Angus was just using Renae for sex, that he'd been sleeping with other women. Renae was deeply upset. She showed Angus the messages and confronted him, but he denied being unfaithful or that he only wanted a casual relationship. Despite Angus's protests, Renae didn't believe him and broke off the romance. A devastated Angus tried to convince Renae that the claims were nothing more than unsubstantiated gossip, but she wouldn't have it. Later that month, the Marsdens closed their family business. Renae was on the lookout for a new job. In October, she commenced a new role as a receptionist at a recruitment agency in Parramatta. Renae was now single, and even though Camilla had since broken up with Brayden, she'd moved on with someone else. When Renae told her mother that she was back in regular contact with Camilla, Teresa was shocked, but Renae was so insistent that Camilla had changed that Teresa felt she too should give Camilla the benefit of the doubt. In the meantime, Camilla told Renae that she had someone perfect in mind for her to help her move on from Angus, and introduced Renae to Brayden, Camilla's ex-boyfriend, via text message. Contrary to how these things sometimes play out, there certainly didn't appear to be any concern on Camilla's part about her best friend and ex-boyfriend getting to know each other. If anything, she actively encouraged it. Even though things hadn't worked out with Brayden, Camilla wanted Renae to be happy. She was better suited to Brayden, and so be it. On November 27th, Brayden contacted Camilla via Renae's Facebook account. As he had Renae's passwords, Brayden wanted reassurance from Camilla that she was comfortable with him and Renae being in touch. Camilla was emphatic that she didn't have an issue with her best friend and ex-boyfriend becoming close, with a view to starting a relationship. Brayden told Camilla, "I'm really happy with how things are going on the positive side. I'm happy that you and Nae are going well. She is a beautiful girl. I love her more than anything." Camilla responded, "That's good to hear, Bray. I'm happy for you and her, and yes, I agree. She is so beautiful. I love her so much. She is the best friend ever." Following Renae's breakup with Angus, Teresa had discussed with Renae that she felt her maturity would be better suited to dating someone slightly older. When Renae revealed that she'd been chatting with Brayden, who was 24 years old, Teresa was slightly surprised that Renae had moved on from Angus so quickly. Teresa had strong reservations when Renae told her that Brayden was Camilla's ex-boyfriend and had introduced them, but Renae reassured her mother the pair were just talking at that stage. In the meantime, Angus had maintained contact with Renae's family in his attempts to win her back. He had a good relationship with the Marsdens and just couldn't understand what had gone wrong with Renae when things seemed to be progressing. Angus knew that Renae had been in contact with Brayden, became slightly suspicious about Brayden's intentions. Just what it was, Angus couldn't precisely put his finger on it, but something didn't feel right. Towards the end of 2011, Angus contacted Brayden on Facebook in order to get to know him better, but Brayden's responses were vague and non-committal. To make things slightly more unusual, when Angus did a bit more digging, he noted that Brayden's Facebook profile was strangely similar to Camilla's. While it wasn't entirely unreasonable for Camilla and Brayden to have certain things in common, both accounts indicated that the pair had exactly the same interests. Brayden had gained access to Renae's Facebook and phone passwords and used her Facebook page to message Angus. Aside from Angus noting this was highly unusual in itself, something about Brayden's messages felt familiar. When Angus compared the messages he'd received from Brayden with the ones he'd seen Camilla send Renae, it was uncanny. The spelling and grammatical errors were nearly identical. Angus contacted Renae, suggesting that he suspected that Camilla and Brayden were the same person. Renae thought the idea was ridiculous and became upset at Angus. Why would Camilla make up a boyfriend? It was a silly thing to say, and as far as Renae was concerned, it was a strategy Angus was using to rekindle their relationship. It wasn't going to work. Angus dropped it, but continued to harbor doubts about Brayden's authenticity. On December 5th, Renae posted on Facebook, "1,000 angels dance around you. I am complete now that I found you." 3 days later, she posted, "It's funny how you can tell someone you love them 50 times a day, and yet that is never good enough. The past seems to always be in the present, no matter how hard you try and block it out." On December 14th, she posted, "Good luck today, my Bray. Hope all goes well. Love you." On New Year's Eve, Renae was dressed up and heading out to celebrate. Excited, she sent Brayden a photo of her wearing a red dress, but the response was abrupt. Brayden told Renae she should cover up. He felt her dress was too revealing and added that she, quote, "better not be unfaithful to him." Renae was emotionally deflated and became more despondent as the night wore on. She received a barrage of text messages, not only from Brayden, but also Camilla, telling Renae she was upsetting Brayden and reiterating that she better not be unfaithful. Angus sent Renae a Happy New Year message, and Renae told Camilla. The next morning, Brayden texted Renae, saying that the relationship was over because she had cheated on him with Angus. Part 3. What about us? By late January 2012, Renae and her family were on vacation aboard a cruise. On January 29th, while Renae was still away, Camilla received a message from Brayden, who was upset that Renae wouldn't reply to him while she was away. Camilla tried to contact Renae the next day, telling her that Brayden was missing her. The following day, Renae messaged Camilla, saying she would be home in a couple of days. Camilla replied that Brayden was missing Renae so badly, he was in tears. She also told Renae that she'd been on a date with a potential boyfriend. Renae was excited for her friend, couldn't wait to hear all about it when she arrived home. Something else had happened while Renae was away. When she returned to Sydney, Camilla had some distressing news about Brayden. It was said that Brayden and his best friend Richie had been in a motorcycle accident. Brayden was uninjured, but tragically, Richie lost his life. Brayden was charged and convicted of manslaughter and was now in prison in Goulburn Jail. In southern New South Wales, Renae was shocked to say the least, but also terribly upset for Brayden. Not only was he in a frightening, strange environment, but he had to live with guilt that he was involved in the death of his best friend. Like many inmates, Brayden had surreptitiously managed to gain access to a mobile phone in jail, which Camilla told Renae she'd arranged through Brayden's solicitor. According to the Sydney Morning Herald, Renae often updated her family at dinner every night about where things were up to with Brayden. The family always talked together about what had happened in their day while they had their evening meal. Teresa felt sorry for what Brayden was going through, isolated from his family. Sounded like he was having an incredibly difficult time. Renae told her parents that because Brayden's family were wealthy, they bribed prison staff in order to ensure Brayden can continue to use his phone. Teresa didn't question Brayden having a phone in jail, given how easy it is to get one. It made sense that the Spateris were able to buy their son favors in jail, as it seemed they had more than enough money. Renae explained to Teresa that she couldn't visit Brayden due to an agreement he made at sentencing. In return for a shorter sentence, Brayden relinquished the privilege of having any visitors during his incarceration. The smuggled phone was the only way he could have contact with the outside world. Brayden and Renae continued to chat back and forth via text messages as well as Facebook. At no stage could they have a phone conversation, as Brayden couldn't risk being heard talking on the phone, much less with one in his possession. Renae would sometimes talk into her phone, sending audio messages to Brayden, but the only responses she ever received from him were text messages. Brayden and Renae shared a lot of mutual Facebook friends, and by February 2012, Brayden was communicating with Renae's friends regularly, including Camilla, and for some reason, Renae's ex-boyfriend Angus. But things came to a head when Brayden sent a nude photograph of himself to Renae's friends, which upset Renae a great deal. The couple had an argument, and Brayden agreed to close his Facebook account, but Renae told him she wanted a break. In an attempt to appease Renae, Brayden sent her a photograph of an expensive watch, offering to purchase it for her. Renae told Brayden she didn't want a gift. She said she needed to get her anger out, and joking that having sex with an attractive guy would be the best way to do this. Renae wanted to hurt Brayden like he'd hurt her. Upon hearing this, Brayden suggested Renae have sex with Camilla instead, to which Renae replied in all caps, "No." A couple of months later, during April, Teresa liked a Facebook post made by Angus. It wasn't long before Renae called Teresa in tears, upset because Brayden had seen the online interaction. Angry that Teresa was still in contact with Angus, Brayden had sent Renae abusive text messages and then proceeded to text angry messages to Teresa, saying, "You're an unfit mother for liking your daughter's ex-boyfriend's posts." By anyone's standards, Brayden was clearly overreacting and didn't like it when he couldn't control a situation. That same month, Brayden unexpectedly required surgery while in jail. He told Renae he wouldn't be able to have contact with her while he was recovering, but his lawyer would be in touch with Renae via text to reassure that Brayden was okay. Renae was relieved that she'd been receiving updates. As it happened, Camilla had gone away on vacation, so she'd been somewhat out of the loop with Brayden too. On April 9th, whilst Camilla was away on holiday, she contacted Renae to inquire how Brayden's surgery went. Renae responded that Brayden's lawyer advised her the procedure went smoothly, that she could expect to hear from him around the 26th. On May 2012, everyone in Renae's life knew about her relationship with Brayden. She spoke freely and openly about his daily struggles, adjusting to life in jail, and on several occasions, he'd been assaulted by other inmates, which caused Renae a great deal of concern. To make things worse, his mother had died in Queensland from an untreatable brain tumor. The family was having difficulties repatriating her body to New South Wales, and during the process, Brayden had become estranged from both his brother and father, but a new partner whom Brayden didn't get along with. The Marsdens felt sorry for everything Brayden was going through. Felt like he definitely needed friends on the outside to support him, but his behavior towards Renae worried those closest to her. Renae had a big heart and a natural instinct to trust people. Her family didn't want to see her mistreated by someone who at times seemed to turn on a dime and become abusive. Renae's cousin Stephanie felt there was something else more nefarious going on underneath Brayden's fits of jealousy. Teresa also had strong concerns by this stage, telling Renae she felt Brayden was rude and arrogant, that it wasn't a healthy relationship. Renae told her mother she decided to end things with Brayden, but wanted to stay friends so he could have support while he was still in jail. His expected release date was in August, and after that time, hopefully his life could get back on track. In June 2012, a hopeful Renae told Stephanie that Brayden was expecting to be released soon. But by October, the relationship appeared to be over. Renae had started dating a work colleague named Ian. The couple enjoyed spending time together. Renae stayed at Ian's place a couple times a week, and they spent their time together going out on weekends. Renae was still in touch with Brayden, but not as often as she had been. She was open with Ian about her former relationship. She told him that Brayden was one of 3 children. His mother had passed away, and his father had lived in Marsden, on the north shore of Sydney. Renae elaborated that she'd met Brayden's family, and that before he went to jail, Brayden had taken over his father's construction business. Ian suspected that some of what Renae was saying was highly unlikely, but not because she was lying. Renae was entirely sincere in recounting all the ins and outs of Brayden's life. While the new relationship was a relief for Renae's family, Brayden was still keeping tabs on Renae. Despite still being incarcerated, Brayden was aware that Renae was now in a relationship with Ian, and he wasn't happy about it. When Renae posted a photo of herself on Facebook, wearing a formal dress to a work function, Brayden saw part of Ian in the photo. Brayden then sent a barrage of abusive text messages to Renae, accusing her of being unfaithful to him. He also sent similarly threatening messages to Ian, warning him, quote, "Stay the fuck away from Renae." As if this wasn't unpleasant enough, Renae was becoming more and more uncomfortable about constant harassment she was again receiving from Camilla. One night, in late October, while Renae, Camilla, and a group of their friends were all out at the casino in the city, Camilla pushed Renae and hit her. Distressed Renae called Ian to come pick her up. This was the last straw for Renae, who changed her phone number so Camilla could no longer contact her. Teresa later reported that in November, Renae said that Camilla had gone psycho at the Marsden home. Camilla had been overwrought at the thought that Renae would spend all her time with Brayden when he was released from prison. Teresa managed to calm Camilla down. Renae reassured her friend that she would still be there for her when Brayden was released. During this time, Camilla asked Teresa what she thought of Brayden. Ever the protective mother, Teresa told Camilla that if Brayden was a man, he'd leave Renae alone till he was released from jail and allow Renae to live her life without waiting for him. Brayden soon after texted Renae, telling her they should leave it until he got out. 2 days later, Teresa wanted to speak with Brayden as Renae was upset. Brayden messaged Teresa, quote, "She's upset because everyone keeps telling her the obvious, that I'm in jail and it will never work. She's everything to me. The last thing I want is to hold her down. She chose to go through this with me after everything that happened. She became my best friend, and I have fallen for her. She tells me she feels the same. Teresa, I'm a good guy. I would never disrespect her, cheat or lie to her. She's everything to me. I can make her more than happy." Brayden then went on to criticize Renae's ex-boyfriend Angus, reiterating to Teresa that he and Renae would see how things went when he was released from prison. 2013 started on a positive note for Renae when she and Ian became engaged in January. The following month, Renae started a new job as a receptionist for a courier company. Even though Renae had never felt particularly ambitious in terms of specific career path, she found herself drawn to studying forensic science. But as she hadn't finished high school, further study was required in order for Renae to enroll in university. In March 2013, she enrolled at a technical college in Granville, studying a diploma of laboratory technology and pathology testing. By this time, Renae's LinkedIn profile read, "I am ambitious, highly organized, determined and devoted to my work, will enter my job with excitement and enthusiasm. I consider myself to be very efficient and trustworthy, with excellent communication skills. I am passionate, calm under pressure, and a fast learner, with a positive attitude towards achieving goals and high-level customer service." But cracks were showing in the engagement to Ian. Throughout this time, Renae and Brayden had maintained contact by text message, which eventually resulted in Ian giving Renae an ultimatum in March. Renae had to choose between her fiancé or Brayden. Regrettably for Ian, Renae chose Brayden. Renae and Ian decided to maintain contact as friends, but Renae was open with her colleagues about her relationship with Brayden. She was determined to make it work, but it wasn't long before Brayden showed that he hadn't changed his behavior. Not long after reuniting, the couple began arguing, which was only placated by Renae making apologetic overtures. A pattern emerged, whereby a period of happiness would follow where the couple expressed their devotion to each other, till Brayden typically became argumentative again. The cycle continued. Even though he was in jail, Brayden emotionally manipulated Renae by exercising a significant degree of control over where she went and with whom. Bitter heated confrontations, all via text message, followed by Renae acquiescing and having to be the bigger person. And still, Renae was having difficulties with Camilla. She just couldn't seem to shake her old high school friend. In mid-March, the friends went out one evening to Paramount Hotel for dinner, where Ian also happened to be dining. Ian and Renae didn't speak during the evening, but after Renae and Camilla finished their dinner, Renae texted Ian, asking if he wanted to catch up for a quick drink nearby. He agreed, but it wasn't long after the girls turned up before Camilla became upset about the unexpected interruption to their night. Camilla and Renae left abruptly, but things were about to get worse. Renae later told Ian that in the car on the way home, Camilla hit Renae on the back of the head and pulled her hair. Renae also sent a message to Brayden, telling him that Camilla's violent behavior was the last straw. I think now, Camilla and I are done for good. We were walking, and she started abusing me in the car, saying, I ruined everything, the rest of the shit. She hit me in the nose and was screaming the whole way home. I don't feel safe around her. I hate going out with her, and I can't do it anymore. I said the last time she hits me again, I'm done. All she kept saying was, you're dead. I'm going to fucking kill you. I can't put up with the violence anymore. Brayden instructed Renae not to see Camilla anymore, but as Camilla's 21st birthday approached, Brayden felt the right thing for Renae to do would be to wish Camilla a happy birthday, but not attend any celebrations, as he didn't trust Camilla to not hurt Renae. Brayden asked Renae whether Ian had contacted her in the meantime, telling her he didn't want them having contact because he felt Ian was the cause of the end of Renae's friendship with Camilla. Renae said she hadn't heard back from Ian, but pointed out that her friendship with Camilla had been volatile long before Ian was on the scene. Brayden responded that he hated Ian, then made a strange suggestion. He insisted that Renae not tell Teresa about Camilla assaulting Renae in the car, and contradicted his previous advice about Renae seeing Camilla. Brayden suggested that Renae take Camilla out for dinner for her birthday, so she agreed to attend the party. Renae wrote Camilla a letter for the occasion, thanking her friend for accepting Renae's relationship with Brayden, hoping that Camilla too would find herself one day as happy as Renae. There are two things that I am absolutely grateful for, and would always be thankful and grateful for the rest of my life. That is allowing me and Brayden to start a relationship together. You don't understand, babe, how much it truly means to me. If it wasn't because of you, I wouldn't have met the one person that means more than the world itself to me. And secondly, for always being there no matter what happens. I only want the best for you, and I hope one day you find your everything, and you're someone that will mean more than life itself, and more than anyone or anything in the world. I'd kill anyone that would hurt you. Learn from your mistakes, babe, especially the last few months, but you have pushed, showing how strong you truly are, and I admire you for that. I'll do anything I can to make sure I can give you what I found and make sure that person is your all. It's my life mission to see you happy. My life won't fully be complete till I see the day you have everything you have ever dreamt of. Later that month, Renae and Brayden's relationship became more intimate. The pair started engaging in text sex, and Renae sent Brayden more personal videos and photographs, But Renae often became upset when her requests for Brayden to reciprocate were ignored. The following months continued to be turbulent for the young couple, due to Brayden's intense jealousy for Renae spending her time with other people. During their conversations, Renae and Brayden discussed getting married after her 21st birthday in October. Following Brayden's release, Renae set to work researching wedding vendors, poring over wedding magazines, looking at dresses, sending photos of outfits to Brayden, and booked a photographer for late November. Renae also set about planning their honeymoon, writing to the Greek consulate general to inquire whether a criminal conviction would prevent someone obtaining a tourist visa. The Sydney Morning Herald reported that in a letter to Brayden in 2013, Renae wrote, "I have never kissed you or held you in my arms. Every day I feel like I have. You make me the happiest girl in the world. I love you so much. One day, I will make you my husband. I love you to death. Continue to love you until the end." Seems like Renae's dream of marrying the love of her life and starting a family would be realized. There was more positive news. Camilla had started dating a guy named Michael. Renae's birthday wish for her friend had come true, and she couldn't be happier. To Renae, Camilla had finally found happiness of her own with someone, which meant she was less demanding of Renae's time. On this basis, Renae maintained the friendship, but the abusive dynamic continued. Tensions still flared between Renae and Brayden over Camilla, who by April had taken to ignoring Renae. Brayden told an emotionally exhausted Renae he felt she should fight to save the friendship, which seemed to get back on track after Camilla apologized to Renae for her behavior. During this time, Brayden continued to harangue Renae about her ruminating on her previous relationships, even accusing her of cheating on him with Ian. Based on Renae's subsequent correspondence with Brayden, the accusation appeared to have some substance. Nevertheless, Renae was wounded by Brayden's words. She reiterated how much emotional support she'd provided, how much she loved him. "I fight for you, Brayden. Every situation we've been through, I've been there. Not once have I complained. I truly thought you were everything, and I could never let you go. I saw my future with you, and I was going to do whatever it took to give it to you. I hate myself for what I did to you." Renae asked Brayden if she could have a personal memento of his as a keepsake to feel closer to him. When Brayden went to jail, all his personal belongings had been put into storage, but only his lawyer had access to the key. Heated discussions ensued about why Brayden couldn't arrange for Renae to have access to the storage facility, as he claimed it was a complicated process. Renae was irate at Brayden's refusal to compromise. By this stage, she was paying for his prepaid phone credit so they could stay in touch, and things seemed so one-sided at times, with Renae making most of the effort. When Renae kept asking about having access to Brayden's storage facility to have just one memento, he called her a materialistic bitch. Days later, things seemed to have settled and were back to normal. Renae told Brayden she wanted them to go to New York for her 21st birthday. As he had a conviction, all he needed to do was make a special application and be interviewed. Brayden told Renae he'd try his best, that she should go without him. Days later, after another argument between Renae and Camilla, Brayden complained that his phone was acting up. Renae offered him her BlackBerry on a temporary basis, telling him she'd arranged to have his phone repaired. She also said she'd organize him a new SIM card so it wouldn't be in Camilla's name. As it was currently, Renae suggested that perhaps she could get it to him via his lawyer. Brayden responded that he didn't know where his lawyer's office was. Renae thought this was strange. How could Brayden have met with his lawyer before he went to jail and not know where his office was? When Renae asked him about it, Brayden responded, "Who the fuck are you to question what my meetings are about? And fucking who with?" When Renae threatened to end the relationship, Brayden immediately changed his tune, saying, "I love you, Renae. You changed my life from day one. I know there have been hard times, fuck times, and mean times. I adore you, and you're so beautiful in every way. I miss you. I love you so much, Renae, without fail every day." Renae told Brayden things wouldn't continue unless he made serious changes. The following days, Camilla suggested that Renae try to exercise more patience with Brayden, for Renae didn't have faith in him and continued to push certain issues. There was the possibility she could lose him. In late April, Renae was feeling despondent, texting Brayden, "I go through hell every day with you." True to her nature, Renae wanted to move things forward and do what she could to advocate for Brayden as his main source of support on the outside. She told him she wanted to speak with his lawyer to discuss the delay in Brayden being given a release date. Once again, Brayden told Renae to drop the issue, but Renae wanted to know the full truth, telling Brayden until he provided her with his lawyer's contact details, she wouldn't speak with him. "Renae, there's some things that just don't make sense to me, and I'm finding it hard to believe." "Brayden, what do you mean?" "Renae, my heart's breaking over and over, trying to understand why you don't want me knowing things." "Brayden, I've told you everything." "Renae, you change your story." "Brayden, I love you, Renae. I've told you everything." "Renae, you told me everything, but it doesn't make sense." "Brayden, please just stop questioning me and have some faith." "Renae, I'm trying to have faith, but it's hard. A few weeks ago, we were so excited to get married. Now you're just changing it. I'm broken, Brayden." Despite Brayden claiming that Richie's family hated him, Renae encouraged Brayden to try to get to a point where he didn't feel sad about talking about Richie, and instead, reflect on the good times they shared together. Renae promised to do everything she could to help Brayden deal with his grief. On May 1st, Renae texted Brayden, "You ever wonder sometimes how strange it is, right? That we never met. We have this inseparable love for each other." Several days later, Renae suggested to Brayden that as he was facing his first Mother's Day without his mother, she'd go and put some flowers at the gravesite from them both. Brayden thanked Renae for the heartfelt gesture, but told her his mother didn't have a grave. Renae thought this was strange, but Brayden said he didn't know why this was the case, saying he didn't want to talk about his family. On May 19th, Renae texted Camilla, "Oh my God, my lip is split in 2 places because of you," suggesting that Camilla was either intentionally or accidentally responsible for the injury. Camilla didn't apologize, but asked later that day how Renae's lip was and how her day was going. Renae's response suggested that all seemed to be forgiven when she said, "Good, thanks. How are you?" Later that same month, Renae and Camilla had a disagreement over Renae wanting to borrow some money. The pair argued, culminating in Camilla threatening to send Renae's parents a risque photo Camilla had of Renae. Once again, things seemed to resolve themselves. By now, the soccer season had started. Camilla played on a local team with Renae's mother, Teresa, and Renae usually attended the matches as a show of moral support, which Camilla in particular appreciated. Brayden's controlling and possessive behavior continued. He told Renae he didn't want her having male friends, socializing with work colleagues, or going to the gym. The pattern was predictable. Brayden would always accuse Renae of lying about her movements and who she was with, and then claim she was being unfaithful. Renae was always the one appeasing Brayden and de-escalating his jealous tirades. By June, Renae and Camilla hadn't been in contact with each other as much. They saw each other socially. It was usually in the company of mutual friends. Camilla had a month-long overseas holiday planned for July, and text messages from around that time indicate that Renae planned to go watch Camilla play soccer, also repaying her some of the money which Renae had borrowed. Unfortunately, one text exchange deteriorated into Camilla lashing out. "How would you feel if I mentioned Brayden and everything?" Renae pointed out the obvious, responding, "Camilla, you always do." The ongoing friction and high-maintenance nature of the friendship with Camilla was the last thing Renae needed. Brayden had already told her that he wouldn't have access to his phone for 4 weeks in July, so he'd essentially be uncontactable. Tension between the couple again escalated. Renae told Brayden that she didn't want to marry him anymore, that there were specific changes he needed to make if he wanted to save the relationship. Instead of taking this on board, Brayden texted back that Renae also needed to make changes, like not socializing with male friends. In mid-June, Renae had a mutual friend of Camilla's named Melanie attend Camilla's soccer game. Following the match, Camilla was disproportionately upset. She'd scored a goal, but Renae and Melanie missed the big moment from the sidelines as they were busy chatting. Camilla refused to drive the girls home and instead sent Renae abusive text messages referencing Melanie, saying, "Get fucked, you cunt. I'm not even talking to her. You're both dogs. It's simple. Yous can get fucked. You're both cunts." 10 minutes later, Brayden texted Renae to see how the match went. Renae vented to her boyfriend about Camilla's childish and immature behavior. "I'm over it. I'm not coming anymore. I don't want a friend like that. She wants to treat me like a dog. She can get fucked. I want nothing to do with her. I'm there every game, sitting on the sideline, watching her in one game. I get abused, so I don't want anything to do with her." Brayden responded unsympathetically, "You're fucked, Renae. I fucking told you to let the friendship go. You ignored it, and look, I can see why she is angry. Renae, you always blame everyone else." Several hours later, Brayden and Renae had a further text exchange. Both were apologetic and professed their love for each other. Brayden told Renae she often misinterpreted things. She countered that Brayden didn't trust her. The exchange concluded with both vowing to never hurt each other. The next day, Brayden continued the conversation, telling Renae he was sick of her being upset by Camilla, and essentially issuing her an ultimatum. He told Renae the friendship wasn't healthy, that she needed to break away from Camilla. On June 19th, Renae acquired a new phone, but continued to use her old handset as an iPod. Even though Brayden was uncontactable during July, Renae missed him greatly and even messaged him several times a day. Brayden's next court date was scheduled that month, and Renae was hopeful that he'd be released. Renae had also once again been giving serious consideration to ending her friendship with Camilla once and for all. Camilla was going to the USA for a month, so it was the perfect time for Renae to make the break. After messaging Camilla telling her the friendship was finished, Renae wrote to Brayden, telling him how much better she felt having ended the tumultuous and toxic friendship. "I can tell you, I have finally let Camilla go for good, and I feel so much better about it now." Renae also broke the news to her mother, Teresa, that the friendship was over. Teresa was relieved. She knew that Camilla's behavior was unusual to say the least. Following the meeting at the cafe 4 years earlier where Renae unsuccessfully tried to end the friendship, and things became physical. Over the years, Renae had disclosed details of Camilla's abuse to her cousin Stephanie, former boyfriends, Angus and Ian, as well as Brayden. But it was only now that Teresa learned just how trapped Renae had felt, what she'd been subjected to. Renae told Teresa about the abuse, violence, harassment, manipulation, and ongoing intense fear that Renae had been experiencing. This included several incidents where Renae was driving, and Camilla reached over from the passenger seat, grabbing the steering wheel. Teresa was shocked. She knew Camilla had issues, but didn't suspect it was this bad. Camilla returned home from her birthday on July 29th, but neither she nor Renae contacted each other. Renae's family hoped that soon, the friendship with Camilla would become just a memory of time and place. Renae was moving on with her life, making plans for the future. Listener, here's where part 1 of Renae's story ends for today. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss part 2, where you'll hear what happened next about how Renae's family fight for justice unfolded. We were deeply honored to speak at length with Teresa and Mark Marsden in the process of concluding our research, and are incredibly grateful to them for sharing their time with us, as well as their memories of Renae. If anything in today's story has raised any issues for you, including concerns about intimate partner or family violence, or if someone you know needs help, please see our show notes for the episode on your app or on our website for a list of contact numbers. you can call for confidential support. Thank you for listening, and keep the fire burning.